I wanted to talk to you of my dreams, of our dreams, of the things that we want to achieve, the aspirations that we all have. Share the things that I've come to learn about those things. No matter which goal you're striving for, whatever successes you've had to date, failures and losses, eventually you'll find yourself at a crux when it all seems too much to continue. None of us are going to pass through this time on our own. None of us are going to pass without losing something. Each of us is set upon by something of this life during our challenges as we chase our dreams. You'll find afflictions that you never imagined sit with you, take up the spaces of your world. Horrors that you didn't expect to find in the world will sit amongst your family and friends. Each of us will be visited at some time. Each of us touched by something, and not just the pressures of life, the commitments that bind us, or the sham of financial worries keeping us awake at night. Most of us will definitely have our hearts broken, time and time again, if that's your constitution. It won't end us. With time, most physical ailments will collect to you. You'll at some point feel the burn of a betrayal, possibly by somebody close to you, possibly by somebody trusted, somebody you love. At some point, though, you find yourself in a fight that bests you, that leaves you beaten down in a way that you could never imagine. Something possibly with a long and complex Latin name. Someone possibly close to you, loved. It might even be your own mind that sets against you. Given long enough, your beliefs and everything you thought was true shatter and fall away. Left, broken. We'll all find ourselves there at some point, considered damaged beyond repair, even by those that you love and love you, surrounded by you. And it's okay. I'm going to tell you that it's going to be all right as you work your way through these things. As the song goes, none of us here get out alive. We each have only so much precious time. It becomes very obvious to us. We can only attend to so many things, measurable finally only from the outside. Whatever goals you have in your heart, in your head, bank your resources against, things will knock you, distract you, stop you in your tracks. Something big and bad and hard will blindside you. It'll take away things that you took for granted, things that you built the foundation of who you were on. Each of us that has endeavoured and strived and succeed, you come to know that winning and losing is just, they're both jesters each. The only true theft is that of your attention, your determination, and your focus. That which distracts and destroys these things is really quite severe. So we have to choose on purpose, quite carefully, what we're going to do, what things we're going to leave behind, which follies do we put our energies into. And actually, it matters not. What you choose, the fact that you choose and dedicate yourself to is really the answer. Each of our whims is, and each of our whims and dedications is as equally important as the next fool's folly. So emboldened with this idea, I haven't been shown which button it is. Sorry. Emboldened with this idea, And fortified with wine one night, I found myself amongst the lost, the unloved things of this world. 2 a.m., drunk on eBay, sifting through others' broken and discarded dreams. You get a lot of time in hospital. Unfinished projects for sale, each touted to the highest bidder. But before I want to go through that kind of sordid story, I need you to come to understand what the car represents to our last century or so, the last 4 or 5 generations of us. 4 or 5 generations of all that we were. We've defined the limits of our knowledge and expertise and execution. All of our understanding manifested into objects, idols. The race car has been, for the last century, the epitome of all our society's endeavours. Technical, passionate, philosophically, it's marked all of our times. The making and building of things at the edge of our knowledge. The realization of our dreams. The will and the character to risk all in the pursuit of ultimately a single quality, speed. I found DXC 805 as a basket case. It's a 1928 Austin Special. It was last ran in the 70s, having changed hands since the late 80s for about 5 or 6 different owners, each of whom had tried and failed to breathe life back into her. Each given her a few years of their lives, all their efforts, all their best intentions, each eventually giving up and passing on her. And so I became the next in that line. There are very few records, little to no documentations of races and sprint specials, few manuals or regulations. She was of a time without rules, when endeavour was measured simply, and the tolerance of life were on a human scale. And so I began my research on the Ashley Special. Who made her and why? Someone's lost dream of their possible future, now our past, becoming my present. And that's what I saw in an old race car. 100 years of passion and effort and commitment. 100 years of our best knowledge and practice of human trials and tribulations, of our wins, losses, loves, frustrations. 100 years of collective energies forgotten, bruised, bent, dented by the things of this world. Found on eBay. Anyway, so that's what I brought home, took into my life, an easy fix. I'd be racing it by the end of the summer, but quickly I learned the truth. From the outside, she looked quite whole, in not bad shape, took a pretty picture. But she was actually in a fairly rough state. There was some major parts missing, no starter motor, no dash, instruments. The engine had been half built. I was later to discover why. Most of the chassis had survived intact. However, there was rust everywhere, every system. She was so far gone, possibly beyond repair. Suffering from length of neglect, and then half a dozen attempted repairs built on top of each older issue. Unquestionably financially impractical. Equally, perhaps impossible to complete. Spare parts are just not a thing for these vehicles of this age. A lost cause indeed. DXC 805 is one of 35 known to have been made, of which there's rumoured and calculated to be only 8 or 9 left. Each hand-built, each unique. However, with damage that is sustained this deep, the only process is to strip it all away. Tear everything apart until it's each separate single piece. Inspect each one. I had nice video footage of all that happening for you. The arduous process of grinding away the cancerous rust. It's a horrible, hard and dirty slog. In the dismantling and thus the beginning to understand, you find that everything breaks and everything's broken. Your attempts to repair and fix initially will cause more damage, sucking you in deeper. Bolts will shear off, things will fly into parts, things will turn to crumble and dust in your hands. However, you will find little clues along the way. The marks of our past, the beautiful act of a maker's mark. I've come to understand the dates and the markings within the Ashley, a connection through time via the object, to not only the efforts of our past, to the understanding and practices and to the standards and qualities held by those that built their dreams at the time, manifested. And in my garage, alone at nights, grinding and hammering and filing, the history of human effort, endeavour and technical understanding unravelled in front of me. A car that was built in the late 1920s, rebodied and redeveloped in 1955, and again in the 70s, then continued to be tinkered with right up until the present day. Methods and qualities of each of these times, each generation throughout the century, pushed into the vehicle, right up to the present day in our last owner. So I began teaching myself new old skills, new old methods, new materials, as nearly each was represented. And as I read and researched about the men and equally the women whom I developed, built, campaigned and raced the cars, I started to understand their qualities. I came to know these things were built in garages by small groups, lone individuals, simple tools, no budget. Each of them was an expression of the beliefs and knowledge of the person working and building. And then to finally compete them amongst their peers. The first time you actually bend a piece of metal to your will and hit it and bash it into shape, roughly, you kind of go, that'll do. But it won't do. It can't do. It never will. Over the time, the metal teaches you. In the execution, every shortcut you take, every lie you tell yourself, every cheat you make will show itself finally, encapsulated forever in the object. You have to execute each time with absolutely all of yourself, whatever your endeavour. And you have to redo, hold a little longer, with more force for the standard, and extract. You have to learn patience. You fight to put your standards and qualities into the materials that you're working. A race car has to be resilient. They function under incredible stresses. Robust, svelte, dynamic. Elegant and precise. Little margin is given. And so one night in my garage, banging and hammering away, stood alone in the commune, trying to perfect a small piece. And as I held my patience and my focus and my strength longer, my determination increased. I held myself to higher and more extracting standards. And I realized I was no longer working on the car, I was working on myself. The qualities I wished to express in the materials were the things I wished of myself. And so the object became the worker, and the worker finally became the object. The thing I wanted to fix and repair began to fix and repair me. And so I now find myself nearly 3 years into an 8-month build. Time has become irrelevant. A quality in the process, finishing a mythical faded goal line. But I am happier now with the project than I ever have been.